All right, everybody, welcome in to Load the Box. It's been about 16 years since we've done one of these. My hair's turning gray. My beard is growing awkwardly as always. And I'm joined, as always, by the wonderful and the marvelous Jack Day on my right or left on your screen. Jack, last time we spoke, we talked about head coaching candidates as well as the breaking news of Kwesi Adofo-Mensah being hired as the Vikings head coach, as their general manager. Now all reports say, even though Vikings fans are heartbroken, that Jim Harbaugh is staying at Michigan, which I don't know about you. I know me personally, very happy that we didn't get Harbaugh. Kevin O'Connell gonna offensive coordinate a Super Bowl, and then he's gonna fly out to Michigan with that fancy winter coat he owns, and he's gonna coach this team. Before we get into that, and maybe just a little bit speculate about the draft, Jack, how you been, man? How you doing?
Yeah, you said we haven't done this in 16 years, and it feels like there's been 30 plus years of newsworthy information in that time frame too. So I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to. I think I was bought into the Harbaugh stuff. I was excited for that, but I don't think it should be looked at as a negative per se with Kevin O'Connell news. I think Vikings fans should be ecstatic about that. It's essentially what a lot of the fan base has been calling for, a younger offensive mind. Been around Sean McVay, obviously, but Harbaugh was intriguing because it felt like if Harbaugh were to come into Minnesota, this team was going to pick up right where it left off. I'll quote myself on that and say that's not necessarily true, but that is how it would have been looked at. I think it would have been not 100% sure, but we would have been looking at a team led by Kirk Cousins more likely than we are now. I know there's news breaking that Kevin O'Connell and Kirk Cousins both kind of have a good relationship with one another, but I texted you this. We can't believe anything until Kirk Cousins is the starter come early September or whatever the date is. So looking forward to diving into some of this stuff. But at the end of the day, I think the Vikings are in a very exciting place. It's all speculation. I think that's why you and I love the draft so much. It's just speculating different things. And now we're doing that with the Vikings as well. Their front office, obviously they went in, they hire the GM. They have a head coach. I don't want to officially say that because as I was mentioning you before the show, I don't want to get burned. Like, why is his name escaping me? The Raiders coach, who'd the Raiders just hire?
Josh McDaniels.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't think of his name for some reason, but I know that happened with him where he took a job and then kind of waffled back and forth, went back to New England. That would suck, but hopefully that's not the case because it sounds as if while O'Connell is kind of starting to scheme for a Super Bowl, it also sounds as if he's starting to put together a coaching staff, which also cannot be named officially until next week. But I think next week's show we can kind of let out a sigh of relief and officially talk about the new head coach of the Vikings.
Yeah, I don't know how quickly the process is gonna go. I don't know if I'm gonna be checking my phone pretty frequently on Monday of next week just to see if they've named O'Connell as the official head coach yet, if they've flown him out. I don't know how I don't know how it operates. I can't really remember the last time like the Super Bowl coordinator got a head coaching gig and then like I don't know. I don't really know how it all works because we got Zimmo, and that's like he was like the first head coach that I was really like into football, following it and doing all of that. And so we got Zimmo, and even then I wasn't like checking Twitter every 15 seconds to see if he had signed on the dotted line. I was just like, oh, cool, we got Mike Zimmo. But talking about Kevin O'Connell, a bunch of cool nicknames. A lot of people making fun of the fact that all the fans are calling him KOC, and I think it was Ben Lebo that kind of said like, okay, let's call him KOC, but let's not say what KOC sounds like if you pronounce it as a word. Which I'm sure no Vikings fans will ever make any innuendo with. But it legitimately, I think there are a lot of question marks with him, as there were going to be for any coach, I think. The Vikings really were looking at this youth movement, and I'm happy they stuck to their guns and they didn't buy into the hype of the Jim Harbaugh situation because you just kind of look at the way the league's moving, and it is that youth movement. It is this newfound offense, passing league, blah, blah, blah type deal. And it's a new style of running the ball. It's creativity and it's thinking outside the box, and that's something I think the Vikings have lacked. I don't know. You want to go back to like 98? Whenever they were actually like an innovative offense, because even in 09, they were still mostly like Adrian Peterson ground and pound, and then Brett Favre was just good enough to really throw it when they did throw it. But it feels like this team hasn't been that exciting, high-powered offense that has the capabilities of blowing out the Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day since 98, and since then it's been a pretty defense/run game oriented team, and it'll be interesting to see if O'Connell just completely shifts it year one, if it's a slow transition into more of a deep passing game. But one thing that I think a lot of Vikings fans don't realize, and Kevin O'Connell could be completely different. He doesn't call the plays, but he's a part of Sean McVay's coaching tree. Sean McVay likes to run the ball. Like, he establishes his ground game pretty effectively. Like, it's about running the ball with some creativity, and maybe a little bit more beef rather than the zone scheme and forcing everybody to be a part of this zone scheme. So, I don't know. I'm really excited about the hire. O'Connell was my number 2. I still will... D'Amico Ryans is gonna be a great head coach someday. Hopefully he's available if O'Connell doesn't work out. But Jack, I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are on the official Vikings head coach, and what you expect to see out of the offense, because I think now all eyes are on Cousins and Jefferson and those guys.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an extremely exciting offense, and I don't want to necessarily say this, and there's a lot of people on Twitter saying they want to see Justin Jefferson slide into the Cooper Kupp role. I think they're fairly different wide receivers. They can do different things extremely well. They can do some similar things extremely well too. But just excited to see Kevin O'Connell get his hands on an offense with as many weapons as the Vikings have. I still do think it sounds as if they're going to do a lot of 11 personnel, and kind of going off what you just said too. Yes, he's not a guy that's called plays, but from what I've read up on, it sounds like schematically speaking, he's the guy actually creating the plays for Sean McVay, and then McVay calls those plays, but he's the one that does the installs and kind of builds that stuff, the groundwork for the offense. that excites me. Maybe he didn't call plays. He did call plays for Washington in 2017 or 2018 for a brief stint when they moved on from Jay Gruden. Yeah. But I'm super excited because you have Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. I think we say this every offseason, maybe Adam Thielen. Maybe this is finally the year that Adam Thielen takes a step back. I just feel like we have to say that. Hopefully he proves us wrong for another consecutive season. But Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne emerged onto the scene as a legitimate, very viable wide receiver 3 this season. And I'm extremely excited to see what Amir Smith-Marset can do in that role too. I think you're going to see more 11 personnel. I know there's a stat saying that the Rams ran this amount of 11 personnel. I don't necessarily think it's going to be quite as high. I think it was like 80+% or something.
Yeah, I think it was a fun Super Bowl fact that the Bengals and Rams run the most 11 personnel in all of the NFL. So kind of a neat fact for Sunday's game.
Yeah, and that's exciting because that means there's still one tight end, one running back on the field, and you have Dalvin Cook and Irv Smith Jr. out on the field with an Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and then a KJ Osborne. If you need to do something more vertical, I think you can get Amir Smith-Marset out there. But there's playmakers galore. I think first and foremost, they're going to come in, they're going to realize, hey, this offensive line, as much as most Vikings fans probably don't want to talk about it, this offensive line has gotten better. It has come a long ways from what it was a couple years ago, I would argue. But there's still a hole, or you can argue a couple holes along the interior of that offensive line, depending on what they do with Garrett Bradbury and Oli Udoh at right guard. I think they need to find a way, especially, this is me speaking, if these the reported rumors about Kevin O'Connell potentially wanting Kirk Cousins to stay in Minnesota, I don't necessarily know if I can buy into that. We don't even know if he's the head coach yet, so how can we buy into that necessarily? But if that is true and Kirk Cousins is the guy in 2022, they have to know that they have to get him protection. I think Kevin O'Connell saw that with Matthew Stafford. If you can put a guy like that, give him some time and have good playmakers out on the field, success will follow. And then you jump over to the other side of the ball, and maybe we don't even talk about that tonight because I think the defensive side of the ball is the scarier side. I don't really know what's going to happen. There's a lot of contracts that are interesting, but I could see where a new GM and a new head coach could come in and say, look at a Danielle Hunter. He's only 27 years old, but look at the amount of money that he's set to make. Could you trade him and get a first or a couple first round picks for him? And then there's Harrison Smith as another big cap hit with his extension. So it's going to be interesting. There's going to be I've said this in probably every show that I've done in the last month and a half, but there's going to be a lot of new faces in that building.
For sure.
And I think Vikings fans are just going to have to get used to the fact that some of their favorite players might not be out there in purple on Sundays this year.
Yeah, this is a bad off season to go jersey shopping. I would wait.
Unless you want a Jefferson. I think a Jefferson jersey is safe.
But other than him and probably Brian O'Neill.
I say O'Neal, Jefferson, and then I say Darisaw. Still early on, but I think just because he's still.
My issue with Darisaw, and this was actually my next point, and this is what I'm looking at, and this is Tom Day. Hope you're watching. Congratulations, it's time. I don't know what they're gonna do with the offensive line. There might be 4 jobs available on that offensive line. I don't think O'Neal's going anywhere. He's good in pass protection. He's good in run blocking. I think he's got right tackle locked down, but the Vikings have been so just laser focused on this zone running scheme for the last however many drafts since Spielman got here. They need, and maybe this is just me wanting to change things up. I don't know what O'Connell's going to want. If O'Connell comes in and he wants these big, beefy, mauling offensive linemen, I don't know if Darisaw fits that scheme, and now all of a sudden we have this first-round pick who could probably garner a good amount of trade value. I don't think they will trade Darisaw. I think he'll be the starting left tackle next season. But I'm just saying, if the new scheme is not so much zone running scheme and it's more pass protection and just man-on-man, be mean to each other, power rushing game, it'll be interesting to see. Ezra Cleveland has been a guy who's taken strides at left guard, and under the Zimmer regime, he's a no-brainer. Yeah, he's going to play left guard. He's a really good left guard in this zone running scheme. How's he going to perform this smaller tackle that has moved inside the guard? How's he going to perform if we decide to get a little bit more physical? It'll be interesting to see those types of things. because it unfortunately it's not as easy as, oh well, Cooper Cup almost broke a record this year, and we have a good wide receiver too. We did it.
Correct.
We're gonna win, we're gonna be in the Super Bowl next year. Oh, Matthew Stafford wasn't very good for a really long time, and then he got with Sean McVay's offense, and they went to the Super Bowl. There's a lot of nuance to it. There's 11 guys on each side of the ball that are now gonna have to fit into new schemes whenever they have been hand selected by the old regime to fit in this scheme. So it will be interesting if O'Connell comes in and just tries to kind of run a version of that scheme with a little bit of twists on it, or if he just comes in and he says, hey folks, this is how we're doing things now. This is the Kevin O'Connell offense. If you're not good at doing things the way I want to do them, you're going to be out of a job. If you can adapt, that's awesome. Hopefully you don't have a bad contract, or also analytics GM is going to trade you for like 5th round picks or whatever. Like, I don't know. It's going to be exciting. And obviously offense is the side of the ball that we want to talk about because he's an offensive coach. I do think I'll let you go ahead. You're the news breaker. There's been about 15 different names coming out as defensive coordinator. I believe reports are starting to point to one guy for sure, probably, maybe getting the job next week. Who's that?
Yeah, reports came out today that Ed Donatel is now the favorite, and he has emerged as the favorite for that D coordinator position, which is interesting. It's an approach that you and I have talked about already, where we said if they do go and bring in this younger offensive-minded head coach, it just makes sense to have a guy on the defensive side of the ball come in with experience. He has exactly that, 40 plus years of experience, and he was actually for the past decade has been kind of the right-hand man to Vic Fangio, who was actually the coach that we had talked about, saying if there is a young guy that comes in and he's offensive-minded, bring in a guy like Vic Fangio. So it's his right-hand man. I think that's something that they should be excited for. It means that 2022 defense is more than likely going to hit the ground running in 2022, or they're going to at least try to hit the ground running. I don't necessarily know if that's going to work out or not, but like I said, he's going to know that. This entire front office is going to know that they're going to have to reassess every single player on that defense. Absolutely. I don't know. You just said that Justin Jefferson is safe on the offensive side of the ball. I don't know if you can tell me and bet any money on any player on that side of the ball being 100% safe this offseason. I don't think there's anyone that's untouchable, and that as much as that kills me to say that, like guys like Eric Kendricks, Harrison Smith, Daniil Hunter, guys that have been staples to a Mike Zimmer-led team, there's a good chance, I shouldn't say good chance, but there is a chance
right,
they're not playing for the Vikings this season. And I know that's not always the most fun thing to hear, but there's also a chance that things have to get worse before things get better, and that could be the situation the Vikings are in. There's a lot of guys. I mentioned Wyatt Davis. If you go back to the offensive side of the ball, we have no idea what the Vikings have in Wyatt Davis because he was hidden. Just the only reps he got all year was in practice. He didn't get any meaningful game reps, which was frustrating. We didn't see guys like Chaz Surratt out there. We saw a little bit of Cameron Bynum, but I don't think we would have seen Cameron Bynum if Xavier Woods wouldn't have gotten.
No, we wouldn't.
I don't know if it was hurt or COVID related. I can't remember, but it makes sense to bring in a more proven coach on that side of the ball that can he has a way of going about his business already. He did overlap with Kwesi in San Francisco for a couple years too, so the connection is there. But I think it makes a lot of sense, and it also I think it means this is something that I have heard kind of rumbling from TCO Performance Center, but it's sounding more and more like that this is going to be transitioned into a 3-4 style defense, and I think an Ed Donatel hire would all but cement that.
Yeah, the 3-4 scares me, and it's probably because I strictly run a 4-3 on Madden, so I understand it a lot better, and I can break things down a lot better. I'm going to have to watch a lot of YouTube videos on 3-4 defenses and get accustomed to them for next year's Madden, I think.
It is going to be a bummer if we get to a point where we make that transition here in Minnesota and Anthony Barr is not on the roster, because I would love – I mean, the year Anthony Barr leaves is the year it's like, hey, we might actually have a spot for you that is actually going to intrigue you and pique your interest, and it's going to be what you're actually good at going after the quarterback. And I brought this up on my show earlier today. you're not going to have to cover guys like Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. I've brought that up on the show several times because I was out there in Los Angeles watching Anthony Barr get torched by those two guys. It's starting to make more and more sense now that Cooper Kupp, arguably the top receiver in the league this year, was torching a linebacker, and
Right.
Anthony Barr probably shouldn't be playing in coverage anyways. I think he kind of held his own there over the last few seasons when he was playing and when he was healthy. But Anthony Barr would be at his best, in my opinion, in a 3-4 style scheme where he's getting after the quarterback, and it'd be a bummer to lose a talented guy like that. But like I just said, like 5 minutes ago, nobody is safe, and it already kind of feels as if Anthony Barr is out the door. He posted some stuff on his Instagram page, and Eric Kendricks was getting all emotional kind of when he was asked about not playing alongside Anthony Barr. Obviously, they've been playing together since whatever it was when he was drafted 2014, 2015 in UCLA. So, yeah, it's going to be a lot of change. But I think if you are a Vikings fan right now, I think change should excite you.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a bad thing. Something has to change, right? Like you can't run the same defensive unit out there and play them the exact same way and expect something to change. Like,
well, now it's going to be Chris Boyd and Cam Dancer at corner too. Start as of now.
The Needlo, or the Needle, whatever it is. Oh man, he's been shaky at best. But I think we'll talk a lot about what we're gonna do at the defensive back position, and in my opinion, what we're gonna do at pass rush, because I don't know. I think the Vikings are in a solid position. With the way this year's draft is shaped and just the way it looks, I think they're going to be able to find a stud at one of those positions. And I do think that if Cousins is the guy, then if we're keeping Cousins to any type of an extension, don't draft a quarterback this season. Just wait until next year and take the kid from Fresno State, because I doubt the Vikings are going to be bad enough to get Bryce Young or who's the other big quarterback in next year's class?
C.J. Stroud.
Yes.
There's some interesting quarterbacks in that class.
I know.
Spencer Rattler. Who
I had to stop watching, like, because I've went through like all of the big name quarterbacks from this year, like big name, because there's supposedly not any. And so I was like, well, and then the news book, which I don't know if this is news per se, but the reports are coming out that Cousins kind of said, hey, I like O'Connell. O'Connell in his interview was like, hey, I'm interested in this job because of Cousins. Seems like that this marriage is going to happen. He's probably going to get extended to what I'll say is one more extension, but who knows with Coke. He might play until he's 75 and just keep taking us to the dang money well. But
I will say this on that stuff. One, even if they are going to trade him, they're not going to be saying negative stuff about him. Obviously, I had something else that I just spaced out, but they're not going to be saying that. And that's what I was going to say. And if Kirk Cousins is extended, I think you can also make the argument that he'd be easier to trade on a new contract. Absolutely. Where it's not I think it'd be a $35 million cap hit for whoever trades.
Well, and hopefully Kwesi's poker face is as good as Rick Spielman's was, where, he had the infamous, like, no, we are not trading
Stefon Diggs is not leaving Minnesota.
Stefon Diggs is a Minnesota Viking. Have you seen the Minneapolis Miracle? What's that? Buffalo? But is that... You got my number.
Yeah, you got a first and a fourth and a fifth calling my name. Yeah, I think we'll take that.
And I hope that's what's happening, because I do think that look, if it's a new regime, come on, man, let's not have this new regime tied to a 35-year-old quarterback. Let's not even talk about his play. Let's just talk about his age. It's like, come on, let's stout the dynasty fresh. But anyway, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in all aspects of the ball. It is going to be interesting after Sunday. We will have the official draft out all set too, which means we might be able to start doing some mock drafts. But I know we had spoken.
Yeah, I was going to say, you haven't done one yet already?
No, I've not on the air, but I've done about 1,000 of them already, I think. And I think I've Snapchatted just about everyone to you. And every one of them has the exact same, like, little caption that just says, fixed it, like, every time. And it's the funny, every time I take the picture, I chuckle to myself. But what's not frustrating, but what's different about this offseason is it felt like last year we went into doing the mock drafts and we were like, this is what the Vikings need. Like, we know if we do a 3 or 4 round mock draft, we know what we're going to go after. You wanted to grab Kellen Mond in the middle rounds, and the Vikings did that. And the mock draft was actually, like, we did a pretty all right job, I would say. But it was clear, like, okay, yeah, the Vikings are going to draft an offensive lineman. This year, with the question marks on everything, who knows what the Vikings are going to do? The Vikings might have 2 first-round picks by the time the draft gets here, so any mock draft could just immediately be null and void because, like, who knows what they're going to do with it. So, they might have 3. They might trade Daniil and Coke, get ones for both of them, and then there they are sitting with 3 first-round picks and a second, and it's like, okay, yeah, let's cook and let's build a dynasty. But I don't know, it's gonna be interesting. I'm sure there's other stuff to touch on. I wanted
to bring this is draft stuff related, just to kind of ramble and extend this. I'm sure we can start talking about that a little bit, but I've been starting to see this. I saw some people kind of tweeting back and forth about this earlier, right before we hopped on the show. Kayvon Thibodeau is starting to, I say, aggressively slide down in these mock drafts, get down to like the 7, 8 range. If you're the Minnesota Vikings sitting there with the 12th overall pick and you see Thibodeau start to slide, I just feel like, and this is a whole different way to look at this too, because I look at it having Thibodeau and Daniil Hunter both out there. And I don't know if that's likely if they do make that trade, but you need pass rushers. We've seen year and year again, if Daniil Hunter goes out and Everson Griffin, DJ Wanham is not containing the edge properly. He's not been good in run support, which I think Vikings fans take that for granted a little bit, how good they've had it with Everson Griffin and Daniil Hunter when they've been healthy out there together. Because not only can they have a nice pass rushing repertoire, but they can contain in the run support too. And that's huge. That is so critical. And we've seen them take a step backwards with DJ Wanham out there instead of Daniil Hunter and Everson Griffin. Obviously, don't know what the Everson Griffin situation is going to be this year. He's getting up there in age too. Retirement might not be out of the picture entirely. And that was another player that was 100% a Zimmer guy. So the DN position, I know you and I were talking about this a little bit. The DN position is a huge position of need in my eyes. Linebacker, if Anthony Barr is gone and Nick Vigil's gone, we not only don't have starters, we have literally pretty much no depth there as well, unless you want to consider Troy Dye and Shaz Surratt, 2 linebackers that were drafted by the Mike Zimmer regime, who we haven't gotten to see at all because why play rookies? And then the secondary, I haven't even gotten to the worst part of that defense, and that's the secondary because like I said, Chris Boyd and Cameron Dancer too. I mean, Cameron Dancer has had his ups and downs. Still, I'll still stand by that. They're 2 unproven corners. And then the starters at safety would be Harrison Smith and Cam Bynum, which excites me. Cam Bynum getting out there and getting a chance. But man, oh man, there's a lot of holes. And it's not just starting holes on that defensive side of the ball. They need depth there as well. And it could, like I said, it could be ugly this year. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully they hit on some draft picks. It'd be cool to start seeing some 4th or 5th round rookies playing from day one because they won the job in camp, and it's not illegal to play these rookies in their first year. But essentially they're going to have to have rookies play meaningful time and play meaningful time well if they want to make any sort of run towards the playoffs next year, which sitting here right now, I'm just looking at the roster and it doesn't feel like they're anywhere near a playoff push, but I'm sure we will have a different viewpoint on that come late August, early September.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. This draft season to me feels like, and we get along pretty well. We're not like Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp or Stephen A. Like, we don't yell at each other and stuff. It feels like this draft season, like, I think there's a good chance we, like, say the F word to each other on air. Like, because I don't know. I feel like we're both going to get attached to our guys, and there's so many directions to go. I don't think, you say that, like, linebacker should be a need, and I'm like, we got Kendricks and Troy Dye. Fill the hole with free agency or in the draft. But, like, I don't know. I would love to get Nakobe Dean. I don't know. Maybe we won't. Maybe we agree in more ways. Because as soon as I said that, I was like, wait, hang on. Nakobe Dean's in this draft. And if the Vikings somehow got him, like, if they, like, if he lasts until the second round pick 14, and they didn't take him, I'd probably throw my TV out the window. I'd rip it out of the wall. But
just picturing him and Kendricks together out there.
Oh my God, it's disgusting. It's especially if we get Carl Laftis as the pass rusher, and that's our defense. It's fixed. We don't need defensive backs. Just put more linemen out there. That's all we need. But I'll be honest, while you were talking, and this is a little bit of a quiz, who was that Texas defensive back that got busted with all that weed that we let go? He was promising, and I can't think of his name.
Holton Hill.
Holton Hill, thank you. Yeah, he maybe we should give him a call now that Zemo's not here.
Him and Chris Boyd can start together. The Texas Longhorn alum.
Hones up, baby. But give Hones up a new meeting. Like it's like the Viking Hones now. Like, you know, Hones up. But anyway, I am excited for draft season, obviously. I think every Vikings fan has to be. I've seen a lot of people saying the Vikings are going to go quarterback, regardless of if there's a Cousins extension. I do think if I started to get on this early on, I got off of it for some reason. If you sign Cousins, don't draft a quarterback in this draft class. Wait. Like, just wait and get one next year. I think next year's a deeper class. And in theory, this guy's not going to play anyway. So just wait, in my opinion, if Cousins gets the extension. And that's if the extension is not just extend and trade. If you do trade Coke, then I think that they like somebody in this year's class, and they're going to pull the trigger on him. And they're in a favorable spot because none of the quarterbacks are really projected to be, you know, number one picks or anything. Almost every mock draft has quarterback falling to like at least 8. So it's gonna be a fun draft season. I think it's one of those drafts where I'm going in not knowing what the Vikings are gonna do, which is kind of neat because last year I watched it with a couple buddies and they were like, "Who do you think the Vikings are gonna take?" And I said, "I don't know. What tackles are left?" And I was like, "Oh, Darisaul's still up there. It's probably going to be him." And then they called out the name, and I was like, "Oh, wow, I'm shocked." Not to say that I didn't like the pick, but yeah, I'm trying to think of other like little like niche draft. Oh, I have to say this on air because it has to be said. The best quarterback in this GD draft class is Bailey Zappi out of Western Kentucky, and I'll scream it from the rooftops until I die. I don't care that Sam Howell can run like 22 miles an hour and Malik Willis threw a 75 mile per hour.
That is insane. When I saw that, I was like, "What?"
That has to like. He's got to throw those balls like Elway that would like tear the gloves by the end of the game.
I don't know. I mean, the majority of people on this world cannot throw a baseball that hard. So it just being able to throw a football that hard, I think it said, I think I read that properly. I think that it broke Josh Allen's record by 7 miles an hour.
I think I thought it was 9. Like he almost like that. He can. Okay. Yeah. He's gotten, I wouldn't mind getting Malik Willis personally, but I still
have a feeling about Matt Corral. I don't know why. I don't have as much reasoning behind it. He wasn't in the Senior Bowl. It does scare me a little bit that it's a very RPO heavy offense, and that doesn't always translate well to the NFL level. But I've did a mock draft yesterday, I think, and I took him in the second round. I have no Kirk or no Kirk. I have no problem if Matt Corral falls to the second round, taking him there. But yeah, it's going to be weird because the quarterback class, no one really knows what's going to happen. I still don't think anyone truly knows who's going to be the first quarterback off the board. I think Malik Willis did enough to make a strong argument or a strong case that he is going to be QB1 in this class, but it's so much uncertainty. It's a good defensive depth class, which I think is good for the Vikings because they're going to need to get a lot of depth. There are a lot of pieces on that defense to help out and make an impact from day one.
Absolutely. And I think it's weird talking about the draft because like what gets the clicks and what draws the eyes is talking quarterbacks, but like I just don't know that it's in the cards for the Vikings this year to be salivating over a quarterback. I still will. Like I still, I'm in love with Bailey Zappi, and I really like I don't know, Kenny Pickett has kind of had a falling out. I'm kind of on the Malik Willis hype train, but like I don't know. I still sit here like once a week and I say, let's just watch some Kenny Pickett games, or let's just watch a couple Malik Willis highlight videos just to like see what's out there, and it's always fun. Now I'm already moved on to next year's draft, but Jack, I'll be honest, I don't know that I have anything else.
I will say, there's one other news piece that we should probably touch on. Don't need to spend a ton of time on it. Vikings hire former Colts GM Ryan Grigson today to be like a special assistant to Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. He was the special assistant in Cleveland with Andrew Berry. I was reading an article from Cleveland.com earlier. he was not saying anything negative about him. I said this to you before the show that he was a part of that, or the reasoning behind trading the first round pick for Trent Richardson, which was an atrocious trade, obviously. But I've seen a lot of people angry with this because of his time with the Colts. I think some of his players, when he left, were pretty outspoken about his exit and how they weren't the biggest fan of him. I think he's grown a lot since that time. I have a quote written down here that I can read that I think is a great thing for a GM. I'll read it here super quick. This is from Andrew Barry, by the way. Every GM is going to swing and miss, but Ryan owned all of his decisions, Barry said. Then he'd work timelessly and relentlessly to correct the mistake, and he never operated out of fear of past failure. You need that in a GM.
Yes,
you have to be able to swing and miss again, and then get back up to the plate. And I don't know. That's my philosophy on drafting quarterbacks. I think the Vikings should draft a quarterback every single year if they want to. And I don't know. I think it's going to be an extremely, extremely fun offseason. A lot of moving pieces, not only in the 53-man roster, but the front office as well. And I think that is why you and myself are so excited for this, because truthfully, none of us really know what's happening, and we're just kind of cruising, and we're here coasting along for the ride. And I think that is what makes this sport and what we do so enjoyable. So I'm looking forward to all of the reckless speculation that is upcoming.
Yeah, I agree. My camera froze, and I'm trying to get it back to functioning. Let me see if it'll kick back on here. If it doesn't, then c'est la vie. But I am speaking, even though I'm frozen on screen. Let's see. I'm trying to think of any special things that we should bring up before we finish up here, and I just can't think of any off the top of my head. Let me see. Ha! I'm back. Yeah, I like you said, the offensive coordinator probably going to be Wes Phillips, son of Wade Phillips. That's kind of neat. He's a rising offensive mind. I saw somebody said he's a hire that is in case KOC doesn't walk out, they want him on the staff, so that way he might be the next coach. And I was like, it's a little early to be thinking that.
Tight ends coach and the passing game coordinator for the Rams right now, and obviously it was a very high-powered passing offense. So that I think that should be exciting, and it'll be interesting to see how the plays develop. If it's going to still be O'Connell kind of on the chalkboard drawing these plays up, if he'll be actually calling the plays. I would imagine he's going to be the one calling the plays now. But
I would imagine that the plays would be drawn up by everybody, because the Vikings are really hammering home this whole collaboration. It's all about collaboration. So I'd imagine that they're gonna give Coke an expo marker and say, Coke, draw what you want to do on this play. And he's going to draw a check down, and they're going to say, Coke,
could that finally spruce Kirk Cousins into the effort, I'm just going to throw this as far as I can type quarterback that we have been calling for him to be? I don't think so either. But
I know he's not, but he's 50 years old. There's no way he's changing now. There's no way he's going to gunsling now. But it would be pretty cool if next season, he just comes to the podium with a trench coat and sunglasses on and was like, yeah, I'm done. I read my Twitter mentions, and I have a lot to show to a lot of you. And then every play is just touchdown or pick. We're either gonna win a lot or we're gonna get blown out a lot. But yeah, that's all I have. Next week, the show, hopefully, fingers crossed, has official news, coaching staff hires. I doubt there'll be any trades, but that will be something that is going to be looked into as free agency opens up and people start getting traded and all of that nonsense. Jack, before we get out of here, I do have one question, and I'm going to make a statement, and then I'm going to shut up. The statement is, I think the Bengals are winning the Super Bowl 27-24. My question to you, who's winning the Super Bowl this Sunday? And then go ahead and talk us out of here. And
I'm kind of torn on it now, because I think I want to see Joe Burrow win, because it's essentially there's 50% of the Vikings fan base that wants their own Joe Burrow. They want the next hot commodity at quarterback in Minnesota. The other half of the fan base is fine with Kirk Cousins. They think they can win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins. And it's crazy to me how that is exemplified in the Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford and the LA Rams. He was a losing quarterback, obviously, in Detroit for his tenure there. And his first year out in his first year with the Rams with a good, solid team around him, both defense and offense, he makes it to the Super Bowl. Yes, he's made some dumb mistakes, but now he's all of a sudden the top 6, top 7 quarterback is what I'm reading about, which I don't necessarily agree with. I think Kirk Cousins and Matthew Stafford, and I know you're not even the biggest Kirk guy, and I think you still would agree with this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Kirk Cousins and Matthew Stafford are in pretty similar tiers, in my opinion. So it's fun to me that we're going to get to see that. Is it going to be this guy that hadn't been able to do anything and he finally gets put into a situation where he's found success, or is it going to be the F it all type Joe Burrow with 85,000 different nicknames already? Who's going to be? I'm torn now because I think every Vikings fan kind of has a little bit of a different viewpoint now that Kevin O'Connell is rumored to be the next head coach. I think it's going to be a good game. I'm slightly concerned about Joe Burrow and his durability against one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. I know he was able to win. I think it was the Tennessee game where he was sacked 9 times and still made that nice throw at the end of the game. With Aaron Donald and Von Miller coming after you, it's not going to be the same thing. That's going to be scary. If they can hold those two off even a decent amount, I think Cincinnati wins. They just have too much kind of swag going into this, and I think I don't necessarily have a score, but I think it's going to be close. I would say within a field goal. I have the Bengals coming out on top, and I think you covered everything else. Make sure to tune in next week. It's going to be a lot more fun when we can officially talk about the next head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, some of the hires that he makes. And then before you know it, the combine is going to be here. The combine is here at the end of the month already. And then it's mock draft season where Jordan and myself are going to nerd out every Wednesday night and just do mock drafts endlessly. So looking forward to getting into that. It's going to be an extremely, extremely fun off season. And most importantly, Skol as always.